to order. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome all to the Selectboard meeting in Wilton on the 21st day of September. Minutes of the meeting of September 7th.
Will we accept them?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any errors, omissions, corrections need to be made? All those in favor?
No abstention.
Oh, that worked good.
All- Did you get that? One abstention. Okay, thank you. Public comment. No comment? Thank you. Thank you for coming. Jen, library report.
Mike, okay here?
Or you can come closer.
Whatever you want.
So you have the report in front of you. We're thinking about the first half of this year, the second half of the last fiscal year. I'm not gonna go through everything, I never do. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. The big things of January, we completed our complete collection inventory. We have 21,000 plus items. So making sure the computer matches every physical item we have. It's an ongoing, important thing to do. We also started working with the Franklin Journal to write children's book reviews. They had approached us and asked if we wanted to do this. We said that's certainly something the library can do. Why don't we have children write the reviews so that it's, more authentic? So Cassie's been working with different kids who come in for programming, or she's sent emails to their parents and they're writing book reviews appropriate for the children who are reading the children's section of the Franklin Journal, which is kind of cool. We mailed and received donations from our annual appeal in January. In February, we sold greeting cards as a fundraiser. We also started lending board games, which is something that libraries are doing more often now. So we've always had them in-house for kids to play. When the library became less of a place to linger, we decided to lend the board games home with kids, which has been a slow program to take off. We have a handful of families who are really excited about it, and so every week they come in and get a different game. We're hoping to take in some donations of new games, perhaps spend a little money on some new games and kind of build that program. So we've seen success, which is great. In March, two things. These sound like one giant report, but essentially we have a report to the state of Maine, which is very simple. Check a box, you're still a library, pay your $75 fee, you're good for another year. And then we have a report to the Maine State Library, which is an annual report, which is 64 pages of statistics and all the records we keep. So it's kind of a daunting task, but it helps the state library kind of be the umbrella for all the libraries in the state of Maine, and it's a good use for comparison, for budget season, for yearly programming. So those were two things were completed. In April, we dealt a lot with elevator malfunctions. This is our second major elevator malfunction this year. It's been fixed. Just a couple weeks ago when we lost power for a while, we had another elevator issue that was easier to solve, still just as expensive, but our elevator is aging, and we're gonna think about that for the future. Also in April, we started our website migration. Essentially, the host who hosts our website, which is the Maine School and Library Network, is doing a bunch of upgrades on their end, which probably I don't understand all of them, but essentially it means our website is way outdated and is not gonna make the transition. So we're in the process of updating, simplifying, and making our website much more user-friendly, which we're hoping to complete in the fall. So, which I guess technically tomorrow's the fall, but we'll complete it later in the fall. Also in April, the Board of Trustees started a bylaw review, which is ongoing, looking at how the association is formed and going through all those things and updating them. It's been quite the process, and I think we're at the stage now where we need to send it to legal. They're gonna look at all the wording, and then it will come back to the board. We'll have an annual meeting and hopefully approve those and go forward. In May, programs in the children's room started to really ramp up. We had all kinds of animals, chicks, kids, ducklings, that the kids were excited to see. The chicks we hatched in-house, the goats obviously we didn't have in-house, nor did they hatch, but very, very popular. We did our first children's story time that had been obviously on hold for a while, but Cassie, again, rallied. We're trying to do story time outside as much as possible for comfort level. Obviously, We've seen over the summer, we've definitely seen more attendance. And then in June, we learned that we're one of the very few places in town to make public copies from printing and from photocopying. We've since obviously fixed our photocopier, but it was a rough couple of weeks when, we learned that lots of people come to the door for that service. We held our first book sale right across the street here. Our book sale volunteers have spent a lot of time this summer revamping the space, and this was the first time that the public was able to come in and do some shopping, which was very successful. And then children's summer reading prep. So obviously that was beyond June, but this summer we did a successful children's summer reading, having groups of kids, story times, activities, etc. Going forward, we're looking at a lot of tech stuff. So we are going to use the ARPA monies that we just recently received to do a replacement of public access computers. Again, the website, our email host is going to be changing, etc. We're going to complete the bylaw review, hopefully before the new year. And as Tom kind of mentioned before the meeting, we're hoping to do Harvest Day, which is something we've done for the past 10-ish years. We didn't do it last year. It's an outdoor kids program, apple cider, more goats, different fall harvesty things. So a very open house style program.
Do any of the older goats? Phil will show up.
I'm not going to comment on that one.
Look, the kettle is black.
If you go to the second page, I always try to give you some numbers where it's hard to compare year to year at this point. We're looking at lower numbers last year, but I think the overall is that patron visits are increasing, circulation is trending in the same direction. So that's very positive. Any questions?
No.
Happy to answer. Comments?
I'll give a comment as usual. Thank you. You guys are doing a wonderful job. I hear nothing but positive things from your patrons, so thank you.
Do we have a motion to accept the
Make a
report?
motion to accept the report.
Second?
And moved in second. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Dunham.
Yes. Yes, we have a total of 59 calls since June 1. 13 of them were mutual aid, out-of-town calls. We did have some pretty good ones for them, for structure fires and whatever. But we got through it. We now have 20 firefighters and 1 junior firefighter, which is now at the North Westbrook Station in a live-in program. She's doing very well. She's passed the firefighter 1 and 2. She's going for an EMT, and so I'm very, very proud of her. Doing well. We're getting to that time of year on the training. We've done a lot so far this year. We got a real hard one coming up. Research for the hazmat, which is going to be October 3rd for 8 hours. And that will be pretty extensive on that training. Then we got a research for January, which is an all-day training also.
Do you have a desktop exercise in January?
Yes. Yes. Yep. Yep, that's all our mandate stuff that we have to have. We are going to be doing it in-house again this year as we did last year. And normally we would be over to high school, but because of everything going on, we're at in-house. So, as you see, we had some ladder work done. We didn't have a choice. The end of the ladder come undone, and it had to be sent to New Hampshire to be fixed. Nobody's fault, just the bearings that it comes in and out on froze up. And when it did let go, took the end right off. So, but they was able to fix it. It's just like new now. And so we'll be having the ladder inspection, yearly ladder inspection, coming right up. and the pump test is going to be done the first week in October. So that will be done. All the other trucks are doing very well, and they also will be pump tested in October. So that's coming right around the corner. We had one of our firefighters wanted to take the EMT course, and he did, done very well. He passed his state test. He's just got one more test to take, and that will be a big boost to us, because we only have 2, now we'll have 3. I just had another firefighter come forth, and it fits right in with the grants. It's not on here, but the ambulance service puts in for a grant for training every year. We was able to get Dave Havel in on that, so all of it was paid for. This year, they done the same thing. They did get accepted for that grant, and I have one more firefighter that's going to be taking the EMTR course, which is just a step down from EMT on the responder end. So he'll be taking that starting in January. We've done pretty well this year on our grants. The MMA grant, misspelled there, but MMA grant, we went for a 20-foot roof ladder. We've had problems over the years when we do get up onto roofs, because the roofs, some of them are so tall. An average roof ladder is 16 foot. And so we've had a couple close calls on trying to get from the edge of the roof to the end of the roof ladder when we have to use the ground ladders. So we went for a 20-foot roof ladder, and I believe that we'll be getting that through MMA. I put in for a Walmart grant that I got, and it's supposed to be for a gas meter, not a hose meter. For a gas meter that we really dearly need. We did get that. It was ordered, and hopefully it's here in October. It's been like 3 to 4 months now. They've been waiting for that. Put in for the EMA grant, which we was good enough to get. And I ordered, I'm going to be ordering a new thermal imaging camera. Ours is getting up there in age, still working, but it's time to update it. And then I also put in for a docking station, which a docking station is to recalibrate the 4 gas meters and bump test. That's something that's coming up. They're putting the pressure to us on that, and they would like to see them meters tested, bump tested every single day. And it's kind of tough for a volunteer department to do that. We're looking at some stuff. Anytime you look at stuff, we all know it costs money. They have a docking station too that you can put in the trucks. It's a drop-in type charger type system, and you can do it. As soon as you get in the truck, you push a button. By the time you get there, it's done. But still, they want us to do it every day, and pretty near impossible to do that. So we're trying to get some more information from the Maine Chiefs Association and the Labor Board information to see if there's any way that they can kind of write them rules and regulations on that. Time will tell. And that's about all we got. Everything's going pretty good, other than that. Any questions?
Move we accept the report.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, Sonny.
Thanks, Sonny.
You got it.
Charles.
Charlie, you're up next.
All right, I'll.
70 houses.
Okay, so in the first heading there, I'm just giving you an update for the whole year. I didn't break it out by quarters, but 7 new single-family residents, and the prior ones, like only 4 on there, so there've been 3 new ones like that. 2 mobile homes, prior one I didn't have any, and 33 garages and sheds. Prior to that, it was about 14. There's 9 expansions or additions. The prior to that coming in the second quarter was only 2. So the big thing that got approved, and that's really down also in the planning board activity, is the solar array that is in East Wilton off Pleasant Avenue. That was just approved last week, so I put that down under this as a commercial kind of entity. We did 15 of the business youth, 10 of which were at the planning board. The previous report, it was like 6 and 5. And the planning board was really quite busy. Since the last report I gave you, we've had 11 additional regular meetings, a workshop with our town attorney, kind of going over procedures. A procedure committee met, and we voted in some new procedures. Had 2 site visits, 2 public hearings, and actually 3 site plan reviews. One of them being the Wilson Lake Marina that you probably have heard of, and that was actually denied. And then we just finished the solar array, and that was granted. And the Wilson Lake Play Museum, they had taken down the accessory building, the barn, carriage house, right? And so they're going to rebuild a, basically it's going to be kind of an outdoor storage usage building, and so that was granted. Okay, talk a little bit about the plumbing permits. Actually, the part that might be interesting, there were 4 replacement septic fields. So that's very similar to the kind of situation that we've got going on in Gilbert South, right? Where, yeah, these fields do fail, or tanks fail, and you gotta redo them. So we'll go into the next page, the marijuana businesses. The board has approved an adult use retail, and that's at 222 US 2. It used to be Patty's Place. And they were still building it out. You know, we did this back in April. I think I sent it out on 4/20. But they're kind of building it out. So they'd like to come before you at your next meeting for their license. I'm going to check and see how they're doing with the retail space. The other marijuana business, the Honeycomb Farm, which is kind of next to the Napa Auto Parts and that area like that. It occupies the westernmost part of that Robinwood Plaza, are due for their relicensing. And part of your purview is to set up a fee schedule. So I talk a little bit about that in there, and you might want to think about this as these fees are coming due. And I'll be quite frank, you know, most of my time was spent, you know, trying to get these ordinances and getting stuff through. You know, I'll get together with, you know, fire and police, and we'll kind of do a review for their pre-licensing, but we have not been incurring a great deal of expenses. So that's why I list kind of what the current fee schedule that we have in there. The new ordinance that was approved took the fee schedule out, and then it allows the Selectboard to set that up. Okay. Also, your next meeting, I'd like to bring in our 3 licensed junkyards for their annual renewal. And yeah, the illegal sign was removed, and there's still a structure there. But, and then finally, Gilbert South. We have the design, we got a permit made out for it, and really looking for cooperation from the abutters to try and keep the costs reasonable. And so there was a letter sent out, I believe you were copied on it. And then I attached my marvelous Excel spreadsheet, which keeps track of permitting. You know, a lot of what I do is really kind of paperwork, right? Permits for buildings or fill or plumbing permits. And that's about all yeah, that's kind of hard to see in there.
Recent.
Oh.
Tom?
Charlie, just thanks for all your work on Gilbert Street. I know it was frustrating at times for you guys.
Well,
but-
it's not over yet.
I know, but you still have done a lot. You and Heinz have done a lot of work related to that, so it's much appreciated.
Staying professional and proactive
That's
on
correct.
moving it forward.
We hope so. We hope it comes to a good fruition. And neighbors helping neighbors is a great model. I kind of like it.
And I also mentioned the, Public Works as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Good team
Everybody, team effort.
team-
been a good team effort, because the road guys made the nice cover, we got on there and we got a hatch and we can open it. It's easy to check and pump and so forth, so.
This does represent some significant gains from a property tax standpoint too, doesn't it? Particularly with the number of.
It does. The largest gains, as he explained, were from the 2 CMP
Right.
substation, and then some of the work they've done on the transmission line were the largest. These actually go into
Yeah,
effect
no,
for
they
next
won't come
year.
around until April 1st
That's
next
right.
year.
So anything before April
Would be
1st,
in last year's.
yeah, anything
Okay.
before April 1st
Good.
would be in this year's, but anything after is going to go on to next year's.
Thank you.
There's a
That-
lag factor, yes. there's a
Right,
lag
that
factor.
amount of houses is the largest I've seen since I've been here.
Yeah. They put the price of lumber too.
Yeah.
No,
So do you have a time frame on the solar farm, when that's gonna start?
Well, they are expecting to actually start doing some clearing of the nearby, the perimeter areas of the trees and brush. They're not gonna do a great deal of need to cut down a lot of there, but they will be cutting some of it, and they've still got to do geotechnical studies, right, to determine whether they can use driven in, I'm gonna say like I-beams, galvanized steel I-beams, or if they have to use screw augers. So if they can drive in the I-beams, they would go that route. And then it's just 2 per panel. I like to wave my hands a lot. So if you can do the screw augers, it's 4. So they gotta determine some of that. But by next year, they will be well underway for construction. So I'm expecting in, April, May, kind of like what we saw in the substation, right? That really kicked up. In December, they were hauling trucks in and out of there, taking a lot of the soil, kind of messing up the road a little bit. I expect most of this work like that won't involve that, but by next year, you'll be seeing panels go up by this time next year. They have a number of them ready. And they are out of Vermont, and that's probably where they have their installed base. I happen to go to Madison, Maine. Madison Electric is a separate little electric company. They have a solar array on their Business Park Avenue, and that's also where their headquarters are. I was there at an animal hospital, but it was interesting to see. It was quiet, it was not glary.
One more question. On the CMP
Substation?
substation, aren't they supposed to plant trees?
Yeah, they're still, as you notice, they still have not connected up all the wires, and they still have not taken down the other 35 kW line and rerouted it. So I'd say they're a little behind on some of that. I could remind them, like, October is kind of Arbor month, isn't it?
Something like that. Plus, fall's a really good.
Well, I do
Fall's a
that.
very good time to plant trees.
It's really
Roots in the ground.
Yeah.
So you
And
might just
now we
want
might be getting some good rain.
to
Yeah.
remind them that.
I might do that.
Might
Thank
do
you.
that. Good idea.
So a motion on.
Motion, we accept Charlie's report.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
I
Any
wanted
other
to give it
questions? So we'll vote on this and then I have a question. All those in favor? It's unanimous. So on the rate structure, are you bringing it back or do you want us to move
What
on
would
it
you
tonight?
like? No, we don't have a, well, that's up to you.
If we accept what he put forward, can you bring
That's-
that up,
Yes.
please?
Not what we currently have.
That's what you go, that's what I'd be going on. All right, so when they come in, your next meeting, all right, so what I've got,
You've
coming.
got some coming before us to approve at our next meeting.
Correct. One of them is the adult use. Okay. So they'd all signed up for the $12.50 a year. That's what it would be. Right? They paid $2.50 to get started, and I apply it to the $12.50. Okay. Then I also have. He does cultivation, and he is a medical caregiver. So he's back up in that $12.50 for his retail, medical caregiver retail. And his cultivation, we've got him, I think, just at the 500 for $2.50. And then there will be more of those coming next year, more medical caregivers, 3 others, and some more of the cultivation. So, yeah, that's what I was gonna be using.
Okay, so do we have a pleasure of the board? Rhonda?
I was just gonna say, my only concern, are the tier 2, 3, and 4.
Do we have any that fall under that category currently?
We have not.
Not yet.
Not yet.
And at worst, we discourage some marijuana dealers from coming to our town.
This would be the growers. This would be growers.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
As it grows.
Yeah.
And the downside of that,
Well, the one that I was expecting to really jump in here was gonna be next door, and all of a sudden, part of the reason for making some modification amendments to the ordinance was to eliminate these restrictions that we had put in place, and they've been silent, so I've been kind of baffled, because, yeah, we did remove that, and jeepers, you wanna have 8 in there or 10 in there, so,
Ron?
yeah.
Your fees are supposed to be reflective of the amount of time we spend and so forth. We can spend $15,000 worth inspecting, of time inspecting a 7,000 to 30,000 square foot plant canopy.
And we haven't been spending a great deal of time. The most of the time I spent was going through and working on the ordinance and kind of getting things ready there. And I took these from what our neighbor to the east has, and it seemed like a nice, and I looked at some of the others, and okay, that's kind of what the going rates were.
okay?
And that's
Tom?
where I started.
I was just gonna suggest that we take it up at the next meeting, so that anybody that has a chance to look at these, if they wanna give us some input, rather than pass it today. That would be my only suggestion. And then it would be good, Charlie, you said you did compare it to some others, it would be good at the next meeting, just to show.
I've got that from
Yeah.
back a couple of years ago. I can try and re-canvas that and see if they've made
Yeah,
any
that'd be a good idea,
modifications.
just so
Yeah.
that we can show that we're not out of line, that we're in line with everybody else around.
Keith?
Do we need to reapprove where it's already existing? You're shaking your heads in both
Yeah.
directions, so.
I believe so, because it's a new
It's a-
new ordinance and the fees were not listed in that ordinance. So they've been pulled out of the ordinance so that you don't have to have townspeople vote on them annually at a town meeting, and that the board can vote on them should they deem they need to change it. So yes, it will need to be voted on.
by us.
Even if we were
by
gonna,
the select board.
even if we were gonna keep what we have.
Even if you're gonna keep what you have, yes.
So right now, we have nothing, so we can't approve anybody.
That's correct.
Well,
So
that's
we'll put it
why,
on the next agenda.
that's why I asked, because if we're gonna be approving it the next agenda,
I was gonna use these and
We don't have, the main concern, at least that I have, are the tier 2, 3, and 4s, and we don't have
That's
anybody
not what's coming
forward
up.
to us
No,
on
it's
tier
not
2,
what's
3,
coming
and
up.
and are we limited to only approving once a year? So if we approved, even if we approved the first 4,
No, easy. If you guys are gonna be changing these mid-year and you're
No,
expecting
I'm
me to,
not.
okay.
No, I'm
to
not saying
adjust
change them.
Okay.
If we, because we have some coming before us at our next meeting.
I'd
if
like
we
to get that
adopt the-
clarified.
Right.
That
If
would
we
be very
adopt the
good.
ones we need for those is all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
So
Tom?
can we put this first on the agenda, pass it, and then issue the license?
Yeah.
I just feel like.
Yeah,
we
no,
should-
I'm fine with that, but I just wanted to have the discussion. That's why I said, what's the pleasure?
That's what my preference is.
Is that consensus? Works?
Yes.
Good. Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks,
We'll
Charlie.
Accept his report.
We already voted on it.
Okay.
We did.
And then you change the subject after.
No,
Okay.
right, I
just
brought it up
a
afterwards.
question.
Blueberry Fest Cap, final funding and coordinator proposal.
we have all the bills in, and we have all the donations in, and we'll see how good this moves down.
So I see
It's a
that-
little bit of a change from the last meeting. A little bit more of the funds were collected, and so everything has been marked down now. Go into the expenses. There were a couple of expenses that have been added on. One was the porta potty, and the other was the parade prizes. The parade prizes did receive a donation to cover it in full right there. So with all the expenses and all the donations, the remaining funds, and that's remaining funds from the 3,000 from the Blueberry Festival, the 13,000 you approved from the unreserved funds, and then the remainder were from the funds that went over to LEAP, the funds collected at the Franklin County Chamber of 1,000, and then the funds that were brought directly here to the town office. What is left over is 7,202, and I don't believe we voted on that last time.
We had
What you
a,
would like to do with
yeah,
it.
well, we had a question about how the money had to be handled as far as what was donated through the LEAP.
So basically, everything that was donated to LEAP was spent,
Okay.
if you want to look at it that way.
Or you could say none of that was spent.
You could, or
But if it's a hassle to handle it because it was
it's
donated
been spent.
I would treat it
as,
I was spent, and then I would recommend we take the 7,202.98 and put it back into the emergency fund,
the undesignated fund.
undesignated fund.
I'll second that.
Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous.
And on the second part,
Coordinator.
yep, I am putting forth a draft of,
Is it your computer that's slow or the connection?
it's a computer.
Okay, can we get you a new one?
I don't have $1,000 to, or whatever it is to get a new one, but
It's an emergency fund.
it,
I think we need to find a way to make this.
Maybe you
This
could use some of
computer
our
does do it.
ARP money
right.
for communications, and it
Yeah,
would fall
and I
under
don't use
it.
the Google one because it doesn't do all the things it needs to be done here. So draft proposal for Blueberry Festival coordinator. I put down for your consideration, hiring a Blueberry Festival coordinator for approximately 500 hours. I gave an amount of $15 to $18 per hour or my preference would be to hire an events coordinator for more money, more hours to run the Blueberry Festival, a Halloween event, and a Christmas event. Those are just approximate amounts. I'm basing a lot of this on speaking with the town of Lisbon and what they started to do with their Moxie Festival. I did have a suggestion that they earn a certain percentage of the sponsorship money. And as I said last time, I know that something to that effect was done at the chamber. I don't recommend doing this because it would just be so much more on our part to have to keep track of. Then you get into, well, somebody else on the committee brought in donations, and I just think that would complicate things more, but I did put that down.
Say that again, I'm sorry, I missed that. Say that again.
So the part about trying to have the coordinator earn a certain percentage of sponsorship money that comes in, I just think that would be a little bit more difficult on the part of us managing the funds at the town to try to figure that out. And then do you go, hey, the following year, it's money that was done last year, do they get it again the following year, or do you just look at new money coming in? The other part is there'll be people on the committees that will bring in funding. Do they get some of it? I don't know. I just think it complicates things.
Well, I don't.
Okay.
Because I think you very clearly is that you want to incentivize somebody to raise money because you're paying them a salary. And that doesn't cover the events unless the town decides, and then may want to decide this because it was such a success, that it's not $3,000. It's $13,000 again. And then with the money coming back into the town, not out of the it would stay in whatever way we have to do from a budgeting standpoint. But I think it gives somebody incentive to go out there and do that. If I raise the money, I don't want it. It's only for the coordinator. Done. If I go and raise money from somebody to put it into the account, I don't want 10%, and I would hope that others would do that. I think it's focused purely on the coordinator, and that's it. And then as far as the next year is concerned, again, she or he has to go solicit that money. So again, if that's not, it may not be new money, the encouragement would be to find more new money, but it's still, if you get that same person to donate, because it takes effort to go out there and do that. So it's purely the coordinator, and it's on what funds that coordinator raises.
Tiffany first.
So I'm not in disagreement about the incentive part. I just think it's maybe how we structure the incentive, meaning that if it's tiered approach where I as a donator, if I'm donating and I donated $100, I would feel a little different knowing that a percentage was going. However, if we'll say 5%, where I think we can accomplish the same incentive by saying a tiered approach where it's not a direct amount of percentage-wise, where if the person has, 10,000, they earn a certain amount, but that way it's not directly contributed back to my donation. So I feel the same way, just a little different structure.
I'm okay. Just something to incentivize the person to go out there and do that work. And I like this idea. You raise this much, you get this much. It's pretty clear. You raise this much, you get this much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keith?
I don't know if we can access the history, but MBTV did that. They hired a coordinator who made a percentage. I don't know if we could find out whether or not it was successful, maybe what model they used.
If I recall, it wasn't successful, but that may be because things have changed. But if I remember, but Andre, maybe you could look into that when you go back.
Continuing on, and again,
But I also just would add, I do like the overall coordinator. You pick 3 events, but there may be other things. It's like when the Wilton, I don't know whether it's the Wilton group, whoever did it, but they had like a spring barbecue. And they got music at the park, and we showed up to cook for them. And it was packed the first night we did that. So it would be, I wouldn't designate it as, other than Blueberry Festival, the others would be other events as determined.
Under number 2, I propose funding the coordinator out of the tax increment financing account, as Lisbon did. They looked at it as economic development because you're bringing people into town oftentimes, and we did see a lot of new people into town this year. That would need a special town meeting approval, so we could do that anytime to approve funding for that. The coordinator would report to the rec director and the town manager. Coordinator works with the events committee. We do need new members. It was the events committee that did that particular event you're talking about, Tom. But we already have that structure in place. And I propose they also work with the rec committee as they did this past year, because there's so much that does pertain with recreation. And then when it comes to Halloween events, working with the police chief, because the police chief has been doing a Halloween trunk or treat for the last number of years. So they submit a time card, they work with businesses prior to these events so that we can keep them better informed. I feel this year we didn't get out and notify the businesses enough, so a few of it slipped through the cracks and not knowing exactly what was happening. And I know the Wilton Group is already a 501c3, and I believe they're trying to get a few more members to that. And potentially you could do the 501c3 through them. I know it was brought up about doing a 501c3 through the town for this, but for a 501c3, you've got to show that you have a special purpose, and I'm not sure a straight Blueberry Festival now would pass that test of meeting the requirements for 501c3, and it could take up to a year or so to get it. That's how much it took for the Wilton.
But if you looked at as an event, a year-round event coordinator, working on, because you're gonna pay it out of economic development money,
Yep.
so if you swing it that way, that you're using it for economic development for the town, it might qualify under the 501c3.
I don't know.
Just a thought. And my concern with the proposal was you estimated 800 hours, 500 to 800 hours, which, is there a possibility if we have a current employee that's not working full-time, that this could make it a full-time job, that, like with the rec department, it might entice somebody, because even at the $18 an hour, you might not get, because it's only a little bit of time, you might end up with better candidates if we could end up with a full-time position.
You do add expense though when you do that, because of other things that would be incorporated into the salary.
Well, that's why I say, and I realize that, but if we had a part-time person
Yeah.
already at the rec department,
Yeah.
so that we're getting double duty out of the person, so it's doing the event coordinating plus also working at the rec department doing stuff. Just a thought.
I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
So, envisioning, would this be like a part-time position where you envision that there would be X amount of hours equally divided amongst the year, or is it a ebb and flow type position?
That's what I
where-
was thinking, was ebb and flow for different events that would come up.
I mean, if you think about it, the time crunch for me was when we got closer to the actual day. And Rhonda was carrying, so basically a lot of the work that Rhonda did would go on to that individual to do, so that she was spending a lot of time, Scott was spending a lot of time. And the crunch really came in the last couple weeks of the thing. I think if you did it and you coordinated it throughout the year, it would be a lot easier to do. And that was the other mess up, we didn't know what was going with COVID. I believe when the other event was being run, they would start raising money like in January, you'd get your first note. So it would not be at the intensity that we ran through.
Yeah, and I really like the idea of not it being solely a Blueberry Festival coordinator, but an event coordinator position. So I could see where maybe it wouldn't be so much of an ebb and flow, but it would be looking at the events that are happening throughout the entire year, and actually maybe looking at spots that we don't have events to actually create new events, so we do have something going on.
And you also, as we were listing, putting a job description, I just thought of it, we should have one other coordinator this with the library, because they do
Yeah.
stuff downtown too that would be good to do.
Right, yeah.
The one thing that you have on here that, you've got your last sentence, it said, make donations to the town of Wilton what I understand is Walmart could not make a donation to the town of Wilton.
Well, they did. We had to fill out some of their paperwork.
Did we get money from them, or did we get?
It went to the fire department. So, they have a new setup now, and we had to go in and just.
Okay, so we just need to
follow the
verify that, because if I remember correctly from Scott, it was, maybe it was timing, is that we could not get any money from them, and that may have been because we canceled it and started it back up again. That's why they gave us 7,000 bottles of water and a lot of sanitizer and everything.
And what you're talking about, I'm just talking about the fire department got a grant through them.
Okay, it may be different.
Which Meg was, right, and that may have been
So
a
they-
separate
So you
program.
may want to verify,
I'll
like
verify
with
that with
Scott.
Scott.
Scott would know,
Yeah.
because I can remember him saying that we thought that we'd get $1,000 from Walmart, but they couldn't do it, so they made $1,000 in-kind contribution. He was taken into their back rooms to take what you need, sanitizer, water, wet wipes, the whole 9 yards.
All right. Where would you like us to go on this next? You want to fine tune it? Do you want me to work with somebody to fine tune it, bring it back to the board for the next meeting?
I would think it needs to be fine-tuned.
Yeah, I think if you can write it up as a job description.
Okay.
With what you put up there as a job description, and then we can kind of peck at it and then put it out there.
Okay.
I think it's absolutely the
I'll
right
do
thing
that
to do.
Keith, you had a question? I thought I saw your hand.
No, I'm all good.
I'm a good,
I'll fine tune it, bring it back to the next meeting.
thank you.
Thanks. Managers report.
The first one is 6 Gilbert Street update. And as an update, one of the things you had asked Hines, who was the water and sewer superintendent, it's slow when I bring up a new one, as far as checking to see if there could be any tests that could be run on the orange colloidal mass that was in question. And so the day after your last meeting, he called Clearwater Lab in Newport, Katahdin Analytical, Alpha Analytical in Massachusetts, talked with a number of people at all the locations, and both lab managers. So we use all of those labs, is what he was saying. The people at the lab said that we did the right test, which is the E. coli and the chloroform testing. The final testing, which was the bacteroids test, which they call a qPCR, is the final one, whether or not to prove that that bacteria that was seen there and that was in question, if it was human or animal. He also reached back out to Maine DEP, talked with Jim Crowley again, and asked what else we can test for. He said there's nothing else, as the qPCR test is the final test and the most expensive test, as we know. I do have pictures of other culverts that have that same type of orange discharge. I've got it on a file here showing the same thing, and as Pete Scher from Ransom put in his report, this type of, between this type of mass and this orange coloration, especially if there's some lead around and so forth, happens in summertime to fall. So it just, is kind of at the point that we don't know what else to test for. We're ready to move on because we feel we've done all the testing and the dye and everything from there. So moving on, Charlie did bring up in his code enforcement report that he has received the septic tank drawing plan. He's approved that. It's been signed off. The abutting neighbors wanted to see that, so it's been sent out to them to view that. They were concerned about it being far enough away from lot lines. Coincidentally, the one that did their survey, same company that did the septic design for the abutting neighbor. So everything appears to be all on the up and up with that now. Our concern again is just that those posts put into the 30-year easement in that road is going to limit these large trucks from getting up into there. You did ask me to find out if we can do anything regarding the posts. The answer is no. The only one that can do anything is the homeowner, because it's on her easement. It's more of a civil type thing, unless we had the contract to do the septic replacement. We don't. It's being done through the
Western Maine Community
Western Maine
Action.
Community Action. So we don't have the contract with them. We really don't have much to do with that, but because we've been involved in overseeing it all the time, since July, we want to make sure that this is taken care of, because we've been brought into it. As you can see on the other ones Charlie had, we weren't brought into those, but we've been brought into this, so we're just trying to make sure things go through as they are. So we're just really in hopes that the abutters will cooperate with Western Maine Community Action so that the tank replacement can be done economically and can be completed at all. That's where we're at.
So when you say only the homeowner, so only the lady that lives there could go down and remove that post?
Yep,
And she has the legal right to do so?
she does.
Can she hire somebody to do that for her?
I don't know that.
Can you check and find out whether she can
Yeah,
hire
I
somebody?
can check through the police department, because that's the same what I'd heard from the police department about whether she can, but if you've seen the pictures, they're putting the ground pretty heavily.
It's all right, it's just so we'd like to know if she can hire somebody. And if that's legal.
Okay.
And then that they'd be replaced after the
And we've written a letter to the abutting property owners saying that, can they be done, they'll be replaced, and then the two abutting property owners can figure that out as a civil case. Okay? Moving on, paving. Since last Monday, our paving company has been in and been paving many roads in town. They're finishing up this week. We may not get every one of our roads completed, and they'll have to come back in the spring, as is often the case, because there are other communities that are waiting for them to. But we've done a number of them. Munson, Cemetery, I don't have the list right in front of me, but Gilbert South,
Lothrop got done, Burge got done.
yep, and a couple of the other smaller ones down through there. Munson Street Extension.
I think they did Curve Street there.
Not Curve, but across the street from Curve, which is Chandler, I believe, in back of the apartments.
Yeah.
Curve was done a few years ago. I'm going to plan, I talked to John about putting it on the website so that people can see what roads were done.
Yep.
And we wanted to break it out by the cost also. The roads have been striped downtown.
so that.
They were just, I think it was done yesterday, the day before. So we're just basically finishing up of the paving right now. Charlie brought up that next meeting we'll do the junkyard permitting. The next one, the memorial at Lakeview, I think you brought this up at the last
Yeah,
meeting.
we actually met with the architectural design people on 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
And they, I was keeping it simple, they had some interesting ideas, and so I think the last thing that needed to be done is you had to get into a formal arrangement with them.
Yep, they've emailed me. She emailed me a couple days ago, Jessica did, and then another Jessica emailed me too. They're ready just to do
Those are some
a
conceptual designs, and we can talk about it.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that I want to do is, I think this is a great idea, but I want to make sure we have I don't know how to call it, public hearing, so
Yeah.
people can come in and express their opinion,
Public
because I don't want
input.
to, because I don't want to go down this path and find out the only one who wants this is Bill Rice and Tom Saviola.
So is their price structure, I can't remember now what
You allocate $2,000
I thought
to
it was.
us out of the cemetery fund, which we've got
Yeah.
plenty of money in, so they know that. And then
Go ahead.
I
sorry.
said they were able to dovetail into another trip they were going on, so we weren't paying them separate to come here.
The only question they had for me yesterday that I haven't replied back to is they are just checking to see if the first two rows, if those are open in case it kind of spills over into that. I didn't think it would, but
I shouldn't, because
shouldn't.
we are limited in space, so they should minimize spilling over into the cemetery space. Because
right.
I call it the chest of drawers, but that's one of the things we're talking about putting there so people's ashes can go into those things, so we can, particularly on the, I guess it would be the west side or the south side. There's a well there, so we can't use it as burial grounds, but we may be able to use it as some of these depositories to put in there. So that's what they were going to design for us.
We should have that pretty soon. The last item I have is, I've got a couple more I made notes on too. The tax rate and tax bills. The tax rate was put forth by the assessor at 19.4, so it is down from the 20 that it's been at for about the last 3 years. The tax bills have all been proofed and approved, and those should go out. I expect to see tax bills in people's mailboxes by the end of this week to the end of next week, so you should all be getting them
So
soon.
excited.
Yep.
It's less than last year.
It's 60 cents a thousand. It's everybody working hard to.
That's correct.
Yeah,
And through COVID, so that's really outstanding. And with the new stuff we have coming online, it's gonna help us out even more if we manage our business.
and that's several years in a row that we've been able to chip away at the tax rate.
It's great.
A couple more items I had when I talked about the paving. I also meant to bring up, I've been getting a number of complaints from people who are saying that people are speeding on various roads, especially the ones that have just
New
been
pavement.
paved.
No bounces.
That happens to us all the time because people see dark pavement and it's this
Smooth.
image of a racetrack. So I'd like to encourage people to not be speeding on those roads. I contact the police chief, we try to get somebody out there, but you can't be on every single road 100% of the time, all the time. Another area I got a complaint about was down in East Dixfield. Chief has already worked with the state police on that because some of that is, that's all right, I'm done except for what else is on my paper. Some of that is commercial vehicles going down through, so that's why the state police was called in to try to do some speed checks on that
And
too.
on Route 2, not a town road, on Route 2.
On Route 2, on Route 2, exactly. The speed limit there was changed a few years ago. It was moved back a little bit. That's Phil. The speed limit was moved back a few years ago. And so instead of this lower speed limit starting down near Hall Farms, and actually starts back up by, am I wrong?
No, you're correct. It
By-
ends by Osgood's.
Osgood's.
I did talk to the state person just after they did it, the engineer, whatever he called himself, because they left all of the passing lanes. So for a lot of people, the passing lane means, step on and go. So I did ask at that time if he could set some double lines all the way through the 35, but that never happened. I think that would be helpful in getting people to notice that.
Okay. I've got to go to send an email to the engineer anyway at DOT. So I'll ask. I'm surprised they didn't do it even this year with restriping, because they restripe those roads every year. Okay. And then the last thing, the police chief said that she would like to do Halloween the same as last year. Instead of having it at Kineawanda Park due to COVID and so forth, she'd like to do the trick-or-trunk down through Main Street.
And drive-through, so.
The drive-through one like they did last year. I think the date is on Halloween night, which I think was a Friday night. I can't see the calendar from here. So if you do agree that that's okay for her to do, she'll contact DOT to check to see about closing the road off for the amount of time. And they limit it. They go like 2 or 3 hours and then they're done and it's open back up.
Good by me.
Is that okay?
It's a Sunday night.
Consensus?
Do you
Okay.
need a motion?
As long as I have a consensus that you're good with it, I'll bring
You're
that back.
We're all good.
We're all good, and that's all I have.
Other business? Anybody? Keith?
I got a couple. I got some complaints about, we're having some washout issues on Walker Hill.
Okay.
Ringing bells, apparently they call and you send somebody up and they fix it, but it sounded like it's always the same location or something.
Yeah, I thought it was on a different road,
Repeat
but-
business.
They just did Walker Hill East Wilton. They
Yeah.
graded the side of that.
Yeah, no,
Known
this
as
is-
Temple Road, but
Yeah,
for us old timers, it's Walker Hill East Wilton.
Walker Hill's so steep that they're supposed to be checking it after major storms anyway, so I'll just remind him. Okay,
and then, under the junkyard things, last fall, I guess this is under other, unfinished business or something. Last fall, we had been given a letter of a bunch of locations in town that were considered junkyards or something. And I know at the time we had talked about with winter coming, we weren't gonna do anything, but now that it's been a year, did we do anything?
I don't think, just one of them, I think, that a letter was sent out to, which was, over on Lake Road.
On Lake Road, yeah, I got a,
We worked with that person.
that's right, a consent agreement, and we'll work with Jerry to try and, yeah, keep it off the road, all right? The other one that was on Weld Road, and I talked to them some.
We were given a list of, I don't know if there were 10, 12 names or something.
I've certainly got a list, and I hope you realize my power is sort of limited. And, you know, I try to, I try to induce some cooperation, not always successfully. But certainly I can review that list. And I know a few are quite high up on there as far as their clutter level.
Yeah, once, after it goes to him, and if he doesn't get cooperation, it would go to the board to decide whether to take him to court.
Yep,
So-
if we've addressed
Right.
whoever was on that list, we've sent them letters, then we're headed in the right direction.
We'll see.
As long as
Bring
we're
that list
following
back
the
up again.
process.
I'm not at the stage where I've got all those things that you have to do legally before it goes to you. If you'd like me to get to that, I'll probably have to put in a little more time at it.
It's okay. We get that, yeah.
which I can do.
That was your two?
Yep.
Anybody else? How about a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Been moved and seconded, and all those in favor?
Good job.
Thank you for coming.